Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and give you the essential insights on big topics, fast. Think of it as your shortcut to getting up to speed.
Exactly. And today, we're digging into the Cisco 2024 AI Readiness Index.
Right, this is the follow-up to their first index last year, so we get to see some trends.
We do. And our goal today really is to look past the headlines, past the AI hype, and see how prepared companies actually are to, use AI effectively. This Cisco report gives us a global snapshot.
And the first big headline is, well, it's kind of surprising, isn't it?
It really is. You'd think with all the talk, all the investment, companies would feel more ready this year.
But they don't.
No. According to the index, globally, companies feel less prepared for AI now than they did a year ago.
Wow. Okay, that definitely sets a tone. Hype versus reality.
Precisely. It shows the gap between sort of wanting to do AI and being truly set up for it.
So how does Cisco measure this readiness? What are we looking at?
They break it down into 6 key pillars. There's strategy, infrastructure, data, governance, talent, and culture.
Got it. A pretty comprehensive look.
Yeah, and based on how companies score across these, they fall into 4 groups. You've got the pace setters, they're the ones fully prepared.
Okay.
Then chasers, moderately ready. Followers, they have limited preparedness. And finally, laggards, basically unprepared.
And what's the breakdown this year? Where do most companies sit?
Well, this is interesting, too. Only 13% are pace setters. So a small group leading the way.
13%. Not many.
No. Then 33% are chasers. But the big group, overwhelmingly, is the followers, 51%.
Half the companies are basically just following along.
Seems like it. Lots of ambition, maybe, but lacking readiness in key areas.
Yep.
And then just 3% are laggards.
So that huge chunk of followers is really the story here, maybe. Lots of work still to do.
Absolutely. It tells you that readiness isn't just about, having one AI project. It's the whole package, strategy, tech, data, rules, people, culture. You need it all.
Right. Keep that holistic view in mind. Okay, so where should we start? Strategy.
Yeah, let's start with strategy because on the surface, it looks a bit better there.
Okay.
For the second year running, strategy has the most pace setters, 28% this year.
Right.
And if you combine pace setters and chasers, it's 76%, which is actually up slightly from 73% last year. And hardly any laggards, just 1%.
Okay, so that sounds positive. Companies are thinking strategically about AI?
It seems so. I mean, 95% say they either have a defined AI strategy or they're, actively working on one. That's the same as last year.
So the intent is there. They are planning. Where are they focusing these plans? Like, what are they actually using AI for?
Top of the list is cybersecurity. 42% report advanced deployment there.
Makes sense. High risk, high reward for AI.
Definitely. Then comes infrastructure itself, 40% advanced deployment. And data analysis management is close behind at 39%.
Any particular industries jumping out?
The natural resources sector actually shows a really high focus on cybersecurity, 45% advanced deployment. Probably reflects the critical nature of their operations.
Yeah, you can see why. And what's the why? What impact are they hoping for with these strategies?
Well, the top reasons haven't changed much. Enhanced efficiency, that's number 1 at 57%.
Okay. Doing things better, faster, cheaper.
Right. Then increasing innovation, that's 47%. And improving customer experiences at 42%.
But what about using AI to, make more money? New revenue streams?
That's the interesting part. It's still the lowest priority. Only 25% list that as a top goal, same percentage as last year.
Still only 25%. That feels like a huge missed opportunity, doesn't it?
It really does. It suggests maybe companies are seeing AI more as a tool to optimize what they already do rather than, fundamentally transform their business or find new markets.
It's a bit defensive rather than offensive, maybe. And how are they getting those efficiencies they want? Is it full automation?
Mostly not, actually. The main approach is assisting with current processes. 44% say that.
Okay, helping humans.
Then augmenting processes is next at 30%. Full automation is last at 26%. So it's more incremental.
Cautious steps. But is there a disconnect here? I remember something about measurement.
Yes. Big disconnect. So 87% say they've had a process to measure AI's impact.
Okay.
But only 38% have actually defined clear metrics to do it.
Wow. So nearly 90% are trying to measure, but less than 40% know what they're measuring.
Pretty much. It's like wanting to lose weight but never stepping on the scale.
Right. And is it similar with the money side, financial planning?
Very similar. 81% say they have a financial strategy for AI that's actually down a bit from 84%.
Okay.
But only 43% have a proper long-term financial plan specifically for AI, same as last year. Lots of short-term thinking, perhaps.
For just difficulty planning long-term in such a fast-moving field, what makes the case setters different strategy-wise?
Well, one thing is they're more willing to actually prioritize AI when budgets are allocated.
They put their money where their mouth is.
Kind of. But even among pace setters, only 27% give AI top priority for both the main budget and any extra funds. And that number hasn't changed since last year.
So even the leaders aren't necessarily just throwing money at it without thought.
Exactly. It's still measured.
Okay. And cybersecurity came up as a key deployment area. How are they using AI strategically there?
There's definitely growing adoption of AI tools for defense. 73% feel moderately or fully equipped to use Gen AI against threats.
Using AI to fight AI-driven threats, essentially.
Right, things like identifying threats, analyzing them, detecting sophisticated attacks faster. AI is becoming a core part of the cybersecurity toolkit.
So summing up strategy, the thinking is there, the intention is high, but the follow-through on measurement, long-term finance, maybe even ambition, it's lagging behind.
That captures it well. Strategic intent is strong, but the practical readiness to execute fully, that's where the questions start.
Which leads us neatly into the next pillar, infrastructure. If the strategy is there, is the tech foundation ready to support it?
Well, this is where we see some significant concerns in the index.
Okay.
A pretty large majority, 68% of companies feel only moderately ready or even less prepared with their IT infrastructure for AI.
2/3 feel underprepared. That's not great.
No, it's not. And overall infrastructure readiness actually dips slightly. Pacesetters and chasers combined are down to 46% from 47% last year.
So it's getting slightly worse, not better. Why? What are the big infrastructure challenges?
It boils down to a few key things. One is just raw compute power specifically, getting enough GPUs, those specialized chips AI needs.
Right, the things everyone's trying to buy.
Exactly. Then there's network performance.
Yeah.
AI means moving huge amounts of data. Cybersecurity for these new AI systems is another big one. And don't forget power consumption. AI is hungry.
It really puts a strain on the existing setup, doesn't it? Like trying to run demanding new software on old hardware.
That's a good analogy. And companies know the strain is only going to increase. 93% expect their infrastructure workload to go up because of AI.
93%. But are they ready for that increase?
Well, 54% admit their current infrastructure has limited scalability and flexibility. So there's a mismatch between expected demand and current capability.
That sounds like a recipe for bottlenecks.
It could definitely slow things down. And the specific shortages are stark.
Like the GPUs you mentioned.
Yeah, 79% say they need more data center GPUs for the future. That's up from 76% last year.
Getting harder to find, or demand is just growing faster.
Probably a bit of both. And 78% lack confidence they'll even have enough computing resources available. Also up from 76%. The pressure is mounting.
And it's not just about having the hardware, it's securing it too, right? Especially with AI involved.
Absolutely. Security concerns are rising. More companies, 67%, now up from 65%, admit they have a limited understanding of specific AI or machine learning threats.
They don't even know what they need to protect against fully.
Seems like it. And 72%, nearly three-quarters, say they fall short on having robust access controls for AI systems and data. That's up from 68%. Big potential vulnerabilities there.
So people recognize changes are needed.
Oh, almost universally.
Wow.
99% agree they need to change their infrastructure for AI.
Okay, so what are they prioritizing? What needs fixing first?
Top priority is making the infrastructure more flexible, scalable, and manageable. 51% say that.
Makes sense. Need that adaptability.
Right. Then deploying AI models out to edge devices is next at 36%. And improving how compute resources are allocated is 35%.
But who is going to do all this upgrading and managing? We keep coming back to people.
And here it is again. The #1 challenge cited for infrastructure readiness. Lack of qualified personnel, 43%.
Same story. Not enough people who know how to build, scale, and maintain this stuff.
Exactly. Other big challenges are cybersecurity risks themselves, 41%, just getting hold of the tech due to long lead times, 34%, and not fully understanding the upskilling needed, also 34%.
So what's the plan then? How are they trying to fix this infrastructure gap?
It's a mix of things. 55% plan to invest in new tech.
Yeah.
51% are trying to hire more people.
If they can find them.
Good point. 44% are looking at infrastructure as a service, basically renting capacity from cloud providers.
Okay. Outsourcing the problem partly.
And another 44% are focusing on reskilling their current staff. 38% are increasing budgets. And a smaller group, 24%, are looking at fully outsourcing IT infrastructure management.
It sounds like they're trying everything, but that talent piece feels like a huge potential roadblock.
It absolutely is. You can have the best plans and the budget, but without the engineers, the architects, the security pros, progress is going to be tough.
Which, I guess, flows right into the next pillar, data. The fuel for AI, how ready are they there?
Well, again, there's this gap between knowing data is critical and actually being ready. Less than a third, only 32% report high data readiness for AI.
Only 32% feel really ready with their data. That seems low, given how much we talk about data being key.
It is low. It shows that getting your data house in order for AI is it's harder than it sounds.
So what are the roadblocks? What's making data readiness so challenging?
One issue is just keeping up with the sheer volume of data constantly growing. Another persistent problem is data quality.
Ah, the garbage in, garbage out problem.
Exactly. 80% still report inconsistencies or problems with pre-processing and cleaning data for AI. That number hasn't really improved since last year.
Still struggling with the basics of clean data. And what about knowing where data comes from? Its history.
That's data lineage. And yeah, 64% say they need to improve how they track that. Plus, you've got massive data fragmentation.
Data stuck in different places, silos.
Yep. 82%, same as last year, say their data is fragmented across different systems. Makes it incredibly hard to get a unified view or even just access the data AI needs.
Breaking down those silos must be a nightmare, especially in big companies.
It's a huge, often slow effort. And then there's the tooling.
How well do their analysis tools actually connect to all this data in their AI platforms?
Not very well, in many cases. 73% report issues integrating their analytics tools with data sources and AI platforms. That's actually slightly worse than last year.
It's getting worse. How bad is the integration?
Well, 29%, almost a third, say their tools are either not integrated at all or only somewhat integrated. That really limits what they can do.
You can't analyze what you can't connect to, so what are they prioritizing to fix this data mess?
Top priority for 44% is better integration of those analytics tools.
Makes sense. Connect the pipes.
Second is improving access for AI teams to the data they need, 39%. And third is making staff better at using the analytics tools they do have, 37%.
And let me guess, talent is an issue here too.
You guessed it. 40% cite a lack of skilled data management talent, specifically for AI, as a key barrier.
Followed closely by
Data access issues themselves, 39%. And again, lack of access to the right analytics tools, 37%.
So it's this cycle. You need good data, which needs good tools and access, which needs skilled people, but all those things are challenges.
There's a bit of a catch-22, yes. Getting the data foundation right is complex, and that complexity extends into governance as well.
Governance, rules, policies, ethics, regulations. That feels like a minefield right now.
It really is. The whole regulatory landscape for AI is moving so fast. You've got the EU AI Act coming online soon.
Right, August 2024.
Plus things happening in Asia-Pacific, individual U.S. states like Colorado passing laws. It creates a lot of uncertainty.
And that uncertainty is hitting readiness levels.
It seems so. Governance readiness saw a dip. Pacesetters and chasers combined are down to 42% from 44%. Companies are feeling less sure-footed here.
Are there actual policies keeping up?
Not really. Less than a third, only 31%, feel their AI policies and protocols are highly comprehensive. So lots of work still needed to define the rules of the road internally.
And finding people who understand these rules.
Huge challenge. 51%, over half, say a lack of expertise in AI governance, law, and ethics is a major barrier.
It's one thing to write a policy, another to have people who can interpret and apply it correctly, especially with AI's nuances.
Precisely. You need that deep understanding.
What about specific governance issues like bias in AI? How aware are companies?
It's middling. 44% rate their organization's awareness of bias as just moderate. Think occasional training, maybe.
Not deeply embedded.
Not for many. There's a split, and 27% claim high awareness, but another 27% admit it's limited. Sporadic discussion, no deep understanding.
But they want to get better. Is it a priority?
Yes, improving understanding of bias is ranked as a top priority for governance by 35%.
Okay, so the intention is there again, but the action...
That's the disconnect. 95% say they try to use diverse data.
Which is good.
But only 29% have regular bias checks and continuous monitoring in place.
Wow. Huge gap between trying and actually verifying systematically.
The very significant gap. It's easy to say you use diverse data. It's much harder to constantly check if it's leading to biased outcomes.
What about data privacy and security? How's the governance there?
Also looks somewhat limited. Only 35% feel there's a high understanding of global data privacy standards across their organization.
Just over a third.
Yep. And about the same number have regular audits and a proactive strategy for global privacy compliance. For data breach protocols involving AI, 38% say they have advanced, regularly reviewed plans.
Still feels like a lot of room for improvement across the board on privacy and data sovereignty, keeping data where it's legally supposed to be.
Understanding there is mixed. 47% say they have a fair understanding, while only 29% claim high expertise.
So most are okay, but not experts. Are they putting measures in place, though?
Actually, yes, more so here. Almost half, 49%, report advanced measures for aligning data storage and processing with local laws. Another 24% has strict protocols.
That seems higher than some other areas. Why?
Likely because of existing regulations like GDPR. Companies have already been forced to deal with data residency and sovereignty more directly for years.
Okay, so existing regs provide a foundation, but applying it all to AI specifically is still the challenge.
Exactly. Governance for AI is clearly a work in progress, dealing with regulations, ethics, bias, privacy, and a real shortage of people who get it all.
That talent shortage again. Which brings us directly to the talent pillar itself. That seems like the recurring theme.
It really is a central challenge running through the entire index. Nearly a quarter, 24%, flat out say they're under-resourced in terms of in-house AI talent.
Just don't have the people they need.
Right. And overall, only 31% feel they're in a high state of readiness when it comes to talent. It's a major constraint.
So what are they doing about it? How do you fill that gap?
Well, the most common tactics, especially for those not feeling ready, are bringing in contractors. 56% are doing that.
Okay, buying the skills temporarily.
And increasing hiring budgets, 54% are trying to attract permanent staff that way. Short-term fixes, often.
But does it work if there just aren't enough people out there?
That's the core problem. 45% cite the general shortage of talent in the market as a key challenge. The people are hard to find.
And when you do find them, they're expensive.
You bet. 48% point to the increased cost of hiring AI talent as a major hurdle. It's supply and demand.
And this whole talent crunch, it's actually pushing companies backwards in readiness.
It seems to be. We saw a significant jump in the number of companies in the followers category for talent, up to 45% from 41%.
More companies falling behind on talent.
And fewer chasers.
Right.
That category dropped from 40% down to 31%. The gap seems to be widening.
But they are trying to grow their own talent too, right? Upskilling.
Yes, that's definitely part of the strategy.
Yes.
40% are investing in upskilling and reskilling their existing workforce for AI roles.
Which seems more sustainable long term.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Interestingly, though, 51% rely on external vendors for this training, compared to only 39% using primarily internal programs.
So a big market opportunity for AI training companies there.
Absolutely. But the overall picture for talent remains tough. Hiring is hard and expensive, upskilling takes time, and the shortage is impacting overall progress.
Okay, one last pillar, but it might be the most fundamental. Culture. How ready are organizational cultures to actually embrace AI?
This is another area showing some concerning trends in the index. Cultural readiness has actually decreased.
Decreased? How so?
The proportion of chasers in culture dropped quite a bit, from 40% last year down to 31% now.
Okay.
And the laggards category for culture grew from 13% up to 17%. Pace setters remain really low, only 9%.
So fewer companies making progress on culture and more falling behind. Why would that be?
Well, a big part seems to be receptiveness starting, or rather not starting at the top.
Leadership buy-in is waning.
It looks like it. Board receptiveness dropped significantly from 82% saying moderate or high receptiveness last year down to just 66% this year.
Wow, that's a big drop at the board level.
Yeah. And leadership teams also dipped from 82% down to 75% receptive. If the top isn't fully championing it, it's hard for the culture to shift.
That lack of enthusiasm must trickle down. What about middle managers and employees?
It does seem to get worse further down. 23% report limited or no receptiveness from middle management.
Nearly a quarter of middle managers are hesitant or resistant.
Seems so. And among general employees, it's even higher. 30% report employees have limited willingness or are actually resistant to AI.
A third of the workforce potentially pushing back. That's a massive hurdle for adoption.
It really is. It highlights how crucial communication and change management are, and maybe how poorly it's being done in some places.
Are some industries doing better than others on the culture front? Feeling more urgency?
Yes, definitely. Technology services, not surprisingly, shows high urgency, 82% moderate to high.
Makes sense. It's their business.
Education is lower at 68%. And restaurant services, for example, is down at 58%. It varies based on perceived impact, probably.
And the change management plans needed to drive this culture shift, are they in place?
Well, 76% say they have a plan, which is slightly down from 79%.
Okay, most have something.
But only 28% consider their plan comprehensive, 62% say it's still in progress, and 10% just have a draft.
So lots of planning still happening, but maybe not enough deep, comprehensive strategies to really manage the cultural change needed for AI.
That seems to be the implication. Many might be underestimating just how significant the cultural shift needs to be.
It really feels like culture, along with talent, could be the biggest long-term brakes on AI adoption, if not handled well.
Absolutely. You can have the tech and the data, but if the people and the overall environment aren't ready or willing, progress will stall.
Okay, before we get to recommendations, the index also looked at how company size and industry play out overall, right? Any key patterns there?
Yes, and they're quite telling. Across all the pillars we discussed, the leaders tend to be in tech-dependent sectors,
Like
technology services, financial services, retail, business services. Industries already comfortable with complex tech deployments.
stands to reason. Who's lagging?
Sectors often with more public service focus or heavy regulation. Think education, transportation, and public services.
And are they just lagging or falling further behind?
Worryingly, their readiness levels generally decline compared to last year. The gap might be widening.
Can you give us a sense of just how far behind they are?
Sure. In education, 5% are laggards, 64% are followers. Transportation, 6% laggards, 62% followers. Public services is starkest, 17% laggards, 59% followers.
17% laggards in public services. That's nearly 1 in 5, basically unprepared.
Yes, it highlights real challenges in those sectors, maybe around funding, regulation, or legacy systems.
What about company size? Is bigger always better for AI readiness?
Interestingly, no, not necessarily. There seems to be a minimum size needed, probably for resources.
Okay.
But the smallest companies in the study, 500 and 1,000 employees, had fewer pace setters, 11%, than mid-sized ones, say 1,000 to 1,500 employees, 16% pace setters.
So medium is better than small. What about really big?
The very largest companies actually had a lower proportion of pace setters, 13%, than those mid-sized ones.
Huh. So size isn't everything. Is there a sweet spot?
The data points to it, yeah. Organizations with annual revenue between $500 million and $1 billion had the highest proportion of pace setters, 24%.
A quarter of companies in that specific revenue band are leading the way.
Why? Our guess. They have enough scale and resources to invest properly, but maybe they're still agile enough without the massive complexity of the truly giant corporations.
So big enough to play, but not so big they get bogged down.
Potentially. Readiness actually declined again for companies above $1 billion in revenue, only 16% pace setters there.
Fascinating. So agility and focused resources might trump sheer size.
It really suggests that. It's about effective deployment and adaptation, not just scale.
Okay, this has been incredibly insightful, mapping out the real state of AI readiness. As we wrap up, what are the main takeaways? What should someone listening really focus on from this index?
I think there are a few core areas. First, infrastructure. You absolutely need to invest in making it scalable, adaptive, and crucially secure for AI. Think agility, data protection, locking down access, guarding against new AI threats.
Right. The foundation has to be solid and flexible.
Second, data. Better management, better integration, and robust governance are key. You need quality data, accessible data, and frameworks that comply with regulations and ethics. Regular reviews are essential.
Get the data house in order and keep it that way.
Third, talent. You have to focus on development and retention. Continuous learning, collaboration, finding transferable skills internally. It's critical given the shortages and costs.
Can't just rely on hiring your way out of it.
Exactly. Fourth, that culture piece. Foster a pro-AI culture. Explain the benefits, address the fears, provide resources for upskilling, maybe even incentives for responsible AI use. Don't underestimate the change management needed.
Get people on board from top to bottom.
And finally, keep that long-term vision. Reassess the AI strategy regularly, make sure it aligns with business goals, and ensure executive leadership is actively driving and supporting it. It needs constant steering.
So it really comes down to a holistic approach. Tech, data, people, culture, strategy, all working together.
Precisely. And the index shows that despite all the buzz, achieving that holistic readiness is, well, proving much harder and slower than maybe many expected.
The key takeaway then, true AI readiness is complex, and overall, companies are less ready than the hype suggests.
That sums it up perfectly. The ambition is high, but the execution across all these critical areas. There's a lot of ground still to cover for most organizations.
Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. Given these widespread readiness challenges, what are the real implications for companies trying to use AI to actually compete and win in the next year or so?
A crucial question. This deep dive certainly gives us a much clearer, more grounded view of where things stand. Thanks for guiding the discussion today.
Thank you. It's been a fascinating look beyond the surface.